Welcome to the Make an Impact podcast, where we have real stories, real people, and real impact. My name is Stephen Turnbull. I'm an entrepreneur, husband, and father on a mission to empower individuals to share their story to make an impact on you. I'm super excited for you to watch today's episode. We have Tristan Riggles, who is the owner of Suds Buds. He is a young entrepreneur. I found out his age while we were recording the episode, and you can probably see me completely get drafted off during the whole pod because it's just incredible what this young man is doing to build a life for himself, pave his own path, and pave his own journey. So I appreciate you being here today. Let's get on to Tristan Riggles. Tristan Riggles, owner of Suds Buds. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great, Steve. How are you?
Thank you for being here. Welcome to Make an Impact podcast. We appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I am super pumped about this conversation. We have a young entrepreneur in the thick of it. I'm in the thick of it, but I'm a little 3-year mark of my new business. You're 9 months. So I refer to that as we're on the same escalator. We're just on different steps trying to figure this out, and we're going to talk a lot about that.
It's a good way of looking at it.
I'm super thankful to, again, shout out to the engineer. He always loves when I give him shout outs. Mr. Mike Taft, who's in here, he loves the shout outs. Introduced us. We've been able to do some business together and introduce people to each other, and it's been really great, and I'm really thankful to have you on today. Let's get into the backstory. People watching this right now, first time they've met you, first time they know about you. Let's talk about Tristan, then we'll talk a little bit about the business.
All right. What do you want to know? Everything. Well, grew up locally, right in Westmoreland. Had all my family live in Utica, so we visited there a lot. Like I said, went to Westmoreland High School all the way through. My mom was a teacher. And I don't know. I wasn't great in school. Didn't love it. Didn't do too well. And I kind of struggled all the way up through. It really becomes more important once I get to graduating, and I was kind of contemplating what I wanted to do. Wasn't really sure if it was going to be college, workforce, and I really originally wanted to go and become an exercise scientist, start working in like personal training. So left high school, went got my own apartment, started going to college, and after about a semester, I kind of realized it wasn't for me, dropped out, got a job, started in real estate, started flipping houses. That was fun, interesting, gave me some experience, especially, getting to the point where I'm starting to look at buying my own house. And from there, transitioned to stocks, which was kind of just like a whirlwind of poor decisions. And then thanks to a really good friend of mine, ended up settling on Suds Buds, which has been, I think, the most successful of my ventures and also the one I have most interest in.
How old are you?
I'm 20 years old.
20 years old. Holy shit. I thought you're a lot older than that. All right. That's 10 years. You got 10 years on you. Wow. Okay.
50% older than me.
Let's walk through this. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
All right. So Westmoreland, you went to school, went to college, thought you were going one route, ended up not going that route. Tell us about that. And I want to preface this. I share this story all the time about my sister. My sister went to high school, went to college because all of her friends are going to college. It's this thing to do. Goes to college, didn't like it, wasn't really sure what she wanted to do. Ended up dropping out and went to beauty school. Fast forward now, is 24 years old, has her own hair salon, super successful, has people working under her and all that. I love the story of like, college isn't for everybody, right? And now here you are trying to pave your own path as an entrepreneur. Love that. I asked the question though, when you get to college and then realize, this isn't for me, what's going through your head?
Yeah, so I had read a book over that summer by Patrick Bet-David, and it's
PBD.
PBD, yeah, gotta love him. And I think it was Drop Out and Get Schooled. I think is the title of the book. I might be wrong, but it's very short, like 90 pages, and there's a lot of spelling errors, but it's a great book. And that book kind of transformed my thinking. I was already very anti-college. My mind is basically it's kind of just a scam. And don't get me wrong, there are people who do it, and it's wonderful. My fiance, she went to school, and she's a physical therapist, and obviously it's necessary. And for instances like that, I think it's great. But for me, I just didn't think it really fit. I remember going through my first semester of exercise science, and my wake up moment was really I was talking with a professor, and she had said something like along the lines of working 80 hours a week, and she makes somewhere between like $40,000 and $60,000 a year. And at the time, it was kind of like, wow, I'm more than willing to dedicate that amount of my week into doing work. But she didn't love it. And for the amount of money she was making, my brain kind of switched, and I was like, let's go with business. You know, I had a friend who I've had for the longest time, and he was in real estate right out of high school. He was actually working in high school. And he was a big promoter of me, like, dude, do this. And he was kind of the only person in my corner at the time saying, Tristan, you need to pursue this. And I guess that's really when I discovered my love for business, you know.
So flipping the coin on that, you say who's the only person in your corner. What was the other corner? What was going on in the other corner?
Yeah, I think, you know, coming from a family where it was go to college, you know, there was no one other than that at that time that was really supportive of that decision. You know, I've made a lot of big decisions for someone who's 20 years old, and I think each time I make one, I feel fully confident at the time of making it, but everyone else in my life is more likely than not to point at it and say, you know, why are you doing this? Mm-hmm. And I think it's just, you know, people know what they know. At the end of the day, you make judgments based off of your experiences, and, you know, I say nobody knows better how to make decisions in their life other than them. Mm. And I think that's kind of what it comes down to is, you know, I had the majority of my family and even my other friends who were very strongly, you know, kind of in the other ear, like, you need to go through school. Mm-hmm. You know, outright people telling me, like, how are you ever going to be successful if you don't go to school? You're going to be a bum. You're going to be nothing, you know? And kind of setting that heavy expectation early on. So I think there was almost that kind of rebel in me a little bit too that was like, I really want to do this and prove them wrong.
Well, it puts a chip on your shoulder. And you know, I have another friend in Long Island that we have a scratch agency in similar years, and we talk all the time about this. And like, there's a difference between the chip where you're an ass and the chip that it's like a healthy chip of like, no, I'm going to do this for myself, and I'm making these decisions for myself. I'm still having a hard time looking at you now, knowing that you're 20 years old. What the hell? It makes me feel old. But I love the fact of you talk about like, you know, no, I know I want to do this. This is what I want to do. People don't talk enough about the power of inaction. Yeah. Of not doing something, right? And you mentioned something there about, well, these experiences are what is going to craft me. I went to school. I tried to figure it out. If you didn't go that way, what was it you were going to school again for?
Exercise science.
Okay, so if you didn't do that and went a different direction, you could be spending the rest of your life thinking, maybe I just really wanted to do that. You know, like these experiences in our life of starting the business and it not working out and pivoting and going to school and not liking whatever it might be, build you and teach you along the way. And as soon as you flip your script and flip your thinking of that, it's so powerful.
Yeah, I remember specifically the last day I went to school, and I'd already contemplated dropping out. I'd reached out to my guidance counselor, told her I was thinking of it, and I was sitting in my accounting class, and the teacher had explained that we were going to spend 2 weeks learning the platform that he was going to use to teach us. And I'm thinking, out of a curriculum that only has so many weeks, we're spending what was like 10% of it just learning how to use a platform to learn. Mm. And it was just so outrageous to me that I was like, why am I spending my money and time on this when I kind of knew very early on, I'm like, I could basically just drop out, do anything, screw up for a few years, and then eventually do something where I kind of hit the nail on the head and take it as far as it can go. And that was the last straw for me. You know, I remember I got up, I walked out, I made a phone call. The second I left the room, I called my friend Kyle and I said, can you get me a job? He said, I can get you a job tomorrow. And that was kind of the thing that prompted that. And I never turned back. I left, I emailed the school, told them I was dropping out, and got the job a week or two later, and the rest is history.
This is what this podcast is all about. Because there's probably people watching this right now that are thinking of, I've always wanted to start this business. I don't really like what I'm doing, but I already went to school for it, and I get a paycheck and it's secure and all that. And then you have the different years that you talked about of your friends saying, drop out and start the business. Don't drop out. You need to go to school. It's going to be safe. Go get a state job and get a pension. All these things. Everybody's different opinion. I mean, just putting myself in the hot seat. Frankly, I had the same problem when I left my family's agency to start my own. Right, there was a lot of people that had opinions. Frankly, still do. About what I did, but I knew I had to do what I had to do for my life. And I tell everybody when anybody asks, like, oh, well, T5, tell me that story. I said, it comes down to one simple statement. You need to put the mask on yourself before helping others. What do the flight attendants tell you all the time, right? And like that is you at 20 years old, 19, 18, whatever you were when you took that leap and saying, no, I need to own my own life and own my own freedom, right? And I think that's so cool. So walk us through. So you go to accounting. You're like, this guy's crazy. I'm not learning this platform. Good luck. And you walk out. What's next?
Yeah, I mean, that was it. I left. I got my job. Still there part-time to this day. And, I went into real estate. I want to touch on one thing, too, that you had brought up. Because, I've always said, and this is something I really pushed on my brother when he got out of high school. Because I kind of tell. He had this same thing where he was like, well, I need to go to college. And I was like, why? Barely made it through high school, even worse than I did, which, granted, I think is a miracle in itself. But he's just someone who's wildly intelligent, has a lot of really good blue-collar skills, and just does horrible in a classroom. And I said to him, and I say this to a lot of people that I talk to, I think what it comes down to is as long as you know what you're getting yourself into. Some people, there's nothing innately wrong with just getting a job, working for a company till you're 65, retiring with a pension, and living the rest of your life, if you know what you're getting into. The thing where the problem starts to arise is where if you have that passion burning inside of you where you're like, I really, really want to start this business, but I don't know how. So I'm going to just do what everybody else tells me to do. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to get a pension. I'm going to start investing in my Roth IRA or 401k. And when I'm 65, then I can enjoy my life. And then from 25 or 20 to 65 is absolute misery. And then the time you get to 65, it's just that feeling of like, wow, it's too late. So, I have very close friends who are in everyday jobs. They make a normal wage, and then the same thing. They're getting their hours into their pension. And, that's the thing is like, I almost respect that more than businesses because they know what they're doing. It's not like, well, maybe one day I'll start my business. It's just like, it's that understanding of like, yeah, I got a job, I make money, and I'm okay with this situation because I like knowing when I'm going to come home every day and I get to spend time with my family. Mm-hmm. So I think there's something to admire there too.
Mm-hmm. Most days I'd call them the smart people.
Right. Yeah. Right. They don't have to deal with all the chaos. I don't have those 2 a.m. mornings and all the stuff.
And just to throw this in there, I mean, we've talked a lot about the entrepreneurship side and betting on yourself. There's no right and wrong way, right? No. I mean, like you said, like working for a company, making a great wage, coming home at 5 and closing the laptop sounds great right now, to be honest with you. But people are wired differently. And like you said, like you got to ask yourself, like, what do you want it to look like? What are you getting into? I love that. Okay, so take us back to accounting class. We walk out, we call, can I get a job? Great. When does the entrepreneur stuff start bugging?
Yeah, so, that was kind of what had happened was I switched from exercise science to business for my second semester. And that was, 2 weeks later I dropped out. And, I said I had that voice in my ear, my buddy, like, hey man, I can get you a job right now where basically you can make very good money and get in next week. And, it was proven because, like I said, very strong voice. He's like, every time we'd hang out, he'd show me his paychecks. He'd be like, dude, this could be you right now. And, it wasn't like money was the main motivator. It was more just, I knew that I wasn't going to like burn up in flames. Mm-hmm. Like I can do this. So I left, I got the job. I first got into real estate. I started working with some guys in high school that I was friends with and just kind of helped when they were working on house flips. So they'd hire me like $20 an hour, come and just do some side work. And like I said, my buddy Kyle at the time was doing real estate and still is. And he was very big into it, even through high school, always talking about it. So dropped out, started getting my real estate license, got all the way up to the point where I had to take the test to get certified. Learned that there was a certification fee that you have to pay every year for the renewal. And I was like, yeah, not spending my money on that because I really had no aspiration to sell houses. It was more investing. Mm-hmm. So, I did the course, started working on some house flips. And that was fun. Like I said, it taught me a lot about working. And also, like I said, we all buy houses at some point if you're blessed enough to do so. And I think it's just cool that now I have the skills that I can take and go apply them to make renovations myself. So that was fun. And I remember I came into contact with my uncle who had done stocks his entire life. His father was a very big stockbroker. And he's like, hey man, I trade and I can show you how to do this. And I was like, that sounds great to me. Showed me his portfolio, showed me the money he was making, his investment strategy. So I sat down and basically learned everything he had to teach me. Started doing it myself, and it was fun. It lasted a little bit of while. But a very wise friend once told me, trading is kind of like gambling. And that's kind of what I felt like, looking back now. It kind of feels like I was more gambling for a living than anything. So, you make a lot of money, you lose a lot of money. If you're lucky, you break even. So that lasted, I want to say, just short of a year. Same thing with the real estate, where I kind of just kept jumping ships. And each time it was kind of like a light bulb moment, like, well, maybe I could do something over here, maybe I could do something over there. And then eventually I kind of had the real big light bulb that was like, why am I chasing things that are not really bringing fulfillment into my life? Which was, I was just chasing money. I was going after the next squirrel that I saw that had a bigger dollar sign on it, and I was chasing it around. And, once I had that wake up call, I was like looking around and going, man, I got myself nowhere. I wasted 2 years of my life, which, they're not totally wasted. Like, I learned a lot. Mm-hmm. I'm very grateful for them. But I spent them doing things that were wildly unproductive for myself and for my future. So that was kind of when I had that moment where I was like, man, I have this aspiration. I want to start a business. Let's go do it.
Love it. All right. So take us through the business planning, because I got a lot to say about business plans, right? I mean, you can sit down all day for your business class in college and make the business plan, and then day one, it doesn't mean anything. You find this out, that. I tell all the time, like when I did my business plan, like, down on pen and paper for my business, like getting an office space wasn't on the business plan. I wasn't going to need it. Well, guess what? My first phone call was to get the agency license. And what did the state tell me? You need an office space. Business plan's completely shifted. How are we paying for this? Where are we going to get it? Talk to us about building that up. And then I want to get into the specifics about who you serve, how people can help, and all that.
Yeah. So we give a plug here. Sat down with my friend Mike. And
Mike Tab, we don't know who that is on this podcast.
Yeah. So Mike helped guided me through everything. We sat down, and at that point it was really more figuring out like what I wanted to do with my future. And I'm looking at a whiteboard list of options and going, what actually suits my purpose, at least at the time, what I felt called to do in my personal life, in my professional life, what fit with me, my relationship, my faith, my future, all these different things. And it was kind of like, it had that moment where it was like, he said to me, he's like, I can tell you have this pull, you want to start a business. So we made a list of blue collar businesses, and he wrote down detailing, and I was like, oh, interesting. Jokingly, it was just like, my brother and I almost started a detailing business over the past summer, and it was kind of that slap in the forehead moment that was like, well, this is what you have to do. I already had a lot of the equipment, a lot of the chemicals, a lot of stuff that was needed to start the business, just needed a catchy name in the LLC, and that came shortly after.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about the early days. We're only 9 months, so we're in the early days, but I want to go back to like, okay, we got the LLC, now what?
Yeah, so it's been a lot of changes that happened over the course of the 9 months. The business has taken wide turns many times. Initially what it started being is called around a bunch of different businesses, specifically detailing businesses, even, trying to narrow down what I thought my clientele would be. So I kind of figured out that nobody was targeting this one niche, which I called like the middle-aged soccer mom. It's the mom who has the goldfish and the pet hair in the back seat, needs it cleaned out affordably and conveniently. So what I started doing is I was picking up cars, driving it to a garage, and detailing them. At the time, my mom was gracious enough where all good businesses started at my mom's garage, cleaned it out, had all my stuff set up there. I was working there. So I would go pick up the vehicles, take them there, detail them, drop them back off. That lasted for a few months until I had a few people say to me, like, have you ever considered kind of going commercial? So I said, that seems like it's a pretty good idea, but I don't know if there's, nobody was doing it. So there was kind of hesitation of like, is there a reason for that? Why is that? Maybe people have tried it, it just doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So I ended up meeting somebody who needed 21 vehicles done and landed a contract with them back in November. And that was great. It was just kind of like, that was what kickstarted the commercial side of things, moving from doing personal vehicles to commercial vehicles and realizing that there was a niche that was not being targeted yet. And this is an area where businesses legitimately needed help, and I can kind of fill that gap.
So tell us how that's been. I mean, the last 3-4 minutes that you've talked about the business, we've already proven my point about the business plan, right? Because you just go, all right, I got my LLC, I got my book bag, let's go. And it's like, oh, nope, we're doing this, we're doing that. So like, tell us about those pivots along the way. And when you realize, okay, I'm going to pivot more towards the commercial clientele, like what was some of the reframing that you were doing? And
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing has been really a strong learning experience.
In what way?
When I initially sat down and wrote out the first business plan, it was kind of like, I want to start a business. I wasn't sure where yet. It was more like, let's make a list of businesses that I could practically start with my skills and the amount of money I had at the time, and detailing happened to be the one that I picked. So it wasn't an overwhelming passion at the time. It was more of, I had a love for business. I like helping people, and that kind of evolved into a business that can help other businesses. And that's really when I landed on the commercial. It was that moment where I was like, this is something that I'm excited about more than just detailing personal cars, and I really wanted to pursue that.
I love that. All right, so we're 9 months in. So I want you to take me back to 9 months ago, in the sense of, like, if you could talk to Tristan 9 months ago, what would you tell him?
Get ready to get kicked in the nuts.
Tell us about that.
So that's I love that phrase. I think it's more frequently used, although I don't know who started using it, although I know Alex Hormozi uses it a lot. But basically, I think I seriously underestimated how many times you're going to get drop kicked in the teeth. When I started a business, I thought it was all going to be sunshine and rainbows, which is, I think, the unfortunate side of social media is, people see people with money and they think that that's the main reason that they have businesses. And some of them maybe, but that money is the main goal and that it comes easily. And I think I found out pretty early on that it required a lot of hard work, and it was going to be a lot of kind of just getting punched over and over and over again and having to just get back up. So,
in my personal opinion, well, yes, I agree 110%. But those 50 times that you get kicked, you have that one that's like the best day of your life. You landed that big commercial contract, like you hit a milestone in your business. It makes those all go away.
Yeah.
And that comes from the passion that you have for your clients, the business, and the why behind what you're doing. What is Tristan's why?
That's a great question. What is my business's why, or what is my why?
You choose.
Well, I think my business's why, if we want to go more the Suds Buds route, is I want to help businesses. And, upon diving into this commercial route, it was initially like, okay, well, people want this. And now that I've been in it for a little bit longer, it's realizing that businesses are currently spending way too much time, money, energy, which all equal just excessive headaches for them on their current cleaning. And the issue is they're spending all this excess to receive something that is subpar from really what they should be looking for. So, I'm able to go in save them money, save them time. They no longer have to worry about it. They can completely outsource this entire piece of their business that before was kind of just this like Belial that they had to worry about. It's like, they show up to the job site and why are all the vehicles disgusting? The guys are supposed to be cleaning them. Why aren't they cleaning them? Why is there dirt all over my logo, which is on the side of my van? Why are the interiors look like a bomb went off? So being able to just go, stop worrying about it. I'll come in any time of day, regardless of where it is. I'll clean it there. You have to do nothing other than tell me when and where to go. And being able to just completely take that load off their shoulders, and in the time also save them resources is really the reason that I've grown to have the passion that I have for the business. Because, like I said, I love business. I have a passion for business. I like helping people, and being able to kind of pool those together and do that for a living has been pretty great.
Okay. I like business. I have passion for business, and I like helping people. 3 things you just said. What is your why?
What is my why?
Why do this to yourself, Tristan? Why start a business from nothing? Why start with 0 clients and 0 income? Why do it?
I don't like being told what to do, I think is really the answer. I don't know. I guess it spawns from when I never liked, getting told when to, what to do, when to do it. I think that's kind of the biggest reason I've always struggled with work, and why I've always, regardless of which direction I picked, was always something where it was more independent. And I like deciding when I get to wake up, when I get to go to work, what I do, when I do it. When I get to decide what family holidays are important enough for me to take time off work for. I don't have somebody looking at me and going, Tristan, it's not important that you go to your future children's, dance recital or concert or sports game, or it's not important that you're home for dinner every night. And those are the things where I think just innately I liked the idea of being able to make decisions. Mm-hmm. So I guess ultimately it's kind of like autonomy, being able to make those decisions for myself and deciding when I can work, when I don't work, how much work I'll do, and also just setting the bar for myself. I like to think that I'm a decently hard worker. I always have been. And I liked the idea of just setting my own goals and having my own expectations for myself. There's nobody above me that says, Tristan, you need to do X, Y, Z. And then it's just my job to fill that gap where I am to my expectations. I can exceed that. I can go far below that depending on whatever I want. So, originally I'd kind of liked sales because I liked the idea of commission. And I feel like that's kind of the same way with owning your own business, where you make the decision of what you do and you get the direct consequences of that, whether they're positive or negative.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, I had a slap in the face in a good way moment yesterday. We have a 3-month-old, almost 3 months, and my wife is still out on leave. And my wife said, "Would you like to get lunch today?" And I said, "Yeah, I would." And we went to Carmela's and we sat down as a family on a Wednesday at noon. And I sat there for about an hour holding my daughter and having lunch and not thinking about work and this and that. And then went back. And it was like that moment of, wow, this is worth it. Right. Like, and those moments for me will obviously compound as she gets older and like the recitals and all the things you're saying. But it's funny. Like, it's such an emotional roller coaster. Yeah. And that's why I said you put those 50 days where you get kicked, even if they're all together, the last 50 days, and you have that one good one, it's all worth it because you think about the highs and the lows, and you have to. That's why for me, when I went on my own, like I didn't realize how much of a mental game it really is. Oh yeah. And I'm just getting deep here, but like it's a mental game of like, no, Stephen, get your ass up and go to work, because like no one, to your point, is saying you have to get up at 4:30 to go to the gym before you go to work because you're going to feel better and all these things. Like when you get there and do it, it's your decision, right? Like I could sleep till 9 o'clock. Who's going to know? Right. You know what I mean? But I'm going down a roller coaster here on this, but it's an emotional ride to bet on yourself, believe on yourself enough, something that we both have in common. When people didn't believe in you or believe that the decision you were making for yourself and for your future was the right thing to do, and continue to go through all that and succeed and start a business and land those contracts like you're talking about. I think there's just, it's definitely a generational thing of like, hey, this is what I want to do. This accounting class where this guy told me I'm going to learn this tool for 2 weeks. Like, no, I'm doing this thing. It's inspiring. And I still can't get over the fact that you're 20 years old. So well,
thank you, man.
That's just gonna stick with me for forever. But
yeah, I think that's where most of that's usually a shocker for people. I think for two reasons. A, I feel like I look like I'm 40, and growing facial hair definitely didn't help. And then on top of it, I would like to think that not that I've accomplished stuff. It's just I've done so much and I've lived so much life in 20 years that, I don't know. I have a buddy. He's told me this for years. He says, Tristan, he says, you have the hobbies of a man who's 80, you look like a man who's 40, and you behave like a man who's 12. And I think that's fairly accurate.
I like that. Wrapping up, how can people help you?
Great. It's pretty simple. If you know anyone or you yourself have a business, you work for a business, has vehicles, give me a call. It's that simple. Like I said, if a business has more than 5 vehicles, I always clean one for free, no strings attached. Just go, show them what I can do, see if it's a good fit. And if it's not, it is what it is. But at the end of the day, that's ultimately what is the most helpful is, being a small business, referrals are fantastic. So like I said, anybody, you are somebody, you have a business, you have vehicles, let me come down, clean one for free, see if we can save you some money, some time, some headaches, and get your vehicles looking great, get your logos all shined up, driving down the road, beat out some of your competition.
One last question for you. What keeps you up at night?
Work. I'm one of those guys that can fall asleep in middle of a battlefield. I could be storming the beaches at Normandy, and if I was tired, I could drop down in the sand and take a nap. So I think the only thing that really keeps me up at night is actually just going, man, I have work to do. So I have to force myself to stay awake.
Which is another emotional side of the business, and owning your business and running it. And there's always work to do. And I should be doing this and should be doing more of this, should be doing less of this. It's a constant ride. You're an inspiration, my friend. I really appreciate you being here. Thanks for coming on. Everybody get out and support my man, Suds Buds. Check him out on Facebook, Instagram, super active on all of that. My name's Stephen Turnbull with the Make an Impact podcast. Until next time, go out there, lead with purpose, and make an impact in someone's life, even if that's your own. Until next week, we'll see you later.